What's up guys, Smith here. Quick guide for today. In schedule 1, I want to share with you our fully automated weed farm. It's been a lot of fun getting this up and going. We're going to walk you through the whole process from the harvesting and growing phase over to the mixing phase and into the packaging phase. So eventually you will just have a shelf that keeps getting filled up with your ideal recipe. Now just real quick, you don't need to do it on this scale. In fact, for weed, I recommend you don't do it on this scale because the profit margins are a lot smaller. This makes a lot more sense for other stuff like the higher level drugs. But I'm going to go through the weed one because this is just, we wanted the barn to be our little weed farm, and I'll do another video on the others later. So going through to begin with, you don't need both botanists. As I've said, you only need one if you want to do this. The important thing is you've got enough buckets for your botanist to look after. As you can see, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Each botanist can look after 8 different buckets. So you want to make sure you don't have 7 because you're not being very efficient. 9's the same. So you want to have 8 buckets. If you put them right in the corner, like so if I move this one right up to the end here, they won't interact with it. So you've got to leave a bit of gap on every side. Sometimes they do get bugged out and they will just freeze. If one of your workers freezes, just pick up anything they might be working on and they will fix themselves eventually. You can always beat them up to and knock them out. So for the botanist, all you've got to do is click on any of the botanists and go to manage. And then click this little button here and you will see all of the pots. And you want to click each of the pots one by one. And that will tell the botanist to manage those pots. So from the managing point, they will plant soil, they will water it, and they will plant the seed. The second part you need to look at is make sure their supplies are tabbed. So you click the supplies thing and then click where you want them to get supplies from. So we've got 8 buckets on each side here. One of them is set up to get supplies from this rack and one of them is set up to get supplies from this rack. This is just so that the racks sort of take a bit longer to run out. You want an even split of seeds and soil just to keep them going. Any soil works. The higher level soil just saves a tiny bit of time with the NPCs having to refill the soil every time. But honestly, the low level soil is probably enough. You will have such an ample supply of just plain bud. Like you can see here, we've got shelves and shelves and we've just deleted a bunch of it. So that should keep them going and obviously make sure they've got a bed. Once you've assigned them the plots, you then need to interact with each of the plots and go up to manage plot. You press the E button there and then make sure you have a destination selected. If you don't have a destination selected, they will not harvest for you. You can see here, all of our plant pots are being harvested and sent to these shelving units over here. So that's kind of the first stage complete. You've got the botanist planting, soil, watering, harvesting, and then storing on a shelf unit. This moves us over to stage 2, which is the mixing stage. This is a bit more complicated. Basically, again, depending on how you want to scale it, I recommend do not scale this big for weed. I recommend just doing it a bit smaller. A chemist can work on 3 different chemist benches. So you either want 3 benches or 6, really, ideally. It's not as important to be specific like the botanist because I'll explain that in a minute. So for each chemist, they can work on 3 different benches. And then each of the handymen, the guys that move stuff around, I always forget what they're called. So the handler, they can have a bunch of different routes. This is where it sort of starts to get a little bit complicated. So step 1, put down your mixing stations. Now you need one of these for each ingredient you want to put into your product. So we're currently mixing this sweet stink stuff, which is really good. It sells for about $165 a piece. You can push that up to $200 quite a lot of the time. This requires 7 ingredients, which is why we have 7 mixing benches set up here. Again, I don't recommend doing this unless you've got money to burn for weed because it is an awful lot of money. You do make it back. It's not a loss. It's just a slow burn and you have to rely on your dealers a lot because there's a lot of busy work. So we're going to get the 3 down. So let's say we've got these 3 here right now. And then what you want to do is you want to put your ingredients in order on the shelf behind. So our ingredients are paracetamol, Coke, paracetamol, gasoline, Coke, beans, and then batteries. And that's the end of the manufacturing line. So whatever strain you're following, you want to have one machine for each of the ingredients you want in it with a shelf behind for that ingredient and set it all up until you've got your full process. So once you've done that, you've got sort of the bare bone bits set up, then you have to actually work on the people themselves. This is where it gets a little bit messy. So you're going to want at least one handler. You're probably going to need more than one. And you're worried about the route. You don't have to assign them any stations. Make sure they've got a bed and then assign them a route. So what you'll do is you'll click a box here, for example. So I'm going to say to this lady here, you are going to take any weed off of this shelf and you are going to put it onto this machine here. So that's what she will do. She will put the weed onto that machine and leave it there. I will then tell her for a second route. So if we go into a second route here real quick, I'm trying not to sort of mess up the setup I've got while I'm doing it. Go to the second route and make another route. And you tell her to put the pills from here onto here. You then go on to the next one, put the Coke from here onto here. and all the way until you have 5. So you're basically telling that first worker to take the weed that you have grown over to this machine, which will start the whole manufacturing process, and then she will drop 4 of the ingredients down onto each of the plates. You can see she's sort of walking through doing it now. This is empty right now, so she's going to fill it up, and then she'll go off and do her thing. What that does is that keeps the mixing element constantly refreshed, and then because she puts the weed on this bit here, this one will always have weed. The next part involves the chemist, which I'll get to in a second. Now you may have noticed that I'm actually having our stuff deposited over here. So these guys grow and then put on these shelves here. I have another person who's got a move action to bring them from here over to here. So that's why I'm using these particular shelves here. So once you get to the chemists, depending on how many stations you've got, because of the way we've got it, I've alternated each chemist. So one chemist functions on this one, and one chemist functions on this one, and then one on this one. Mostly because if you have one chemist working on 2 next to each other, you will often have them working on one while the other one can also be worked on. So get your chemists and then just assign them 3 benches. Again, we're using 7, so I'd probably go 1, 1, 1, and then do the other one as 1, 1, and 1. That's the ideal setup. It doesn't have to be that way. It's just a bit quicker. The important thing with the chemist is once you've got the mixing station, you want to interact with the mixing station while you've got your clipboard out and make sure that your destination is the next mixing station. So what this does is once it's finished, she will put the mixed product onto the next platform that your worker has already put down the next material on, which will then get mixed by the next chemist, and you do that the whole way down. So you click this mixing station with your clipboard open and make sure that that one is going onto there. So it creates like a conveyor belt system basically, where your chemists are solely responsible for mixing and transferring the product between mixers. So the chemist will mix. Once the product is finished, she'll put it onto the next section and so forth all the way down your line. The workers, the handlers, are responsible for making sure that the mixed product, so paracetamol in this case, is off the shelf and onto the mixing station. So it's a bit confusing to begin with, but get the hang of it pretty quickly. And this sort of learning this system will just let you do this with anything. Obviously, we're going to dial this up a lot more with the high level drugs because it will be a lot bigger profit margins. But as you can see, it's making quite a lot of product. So once we've got to the very end here, so at the end of your system, we have a different setup because obviously we don't want to send it to any other benches. So for this one, we've put a destination as the rack. So you can see this is the rack over here. And then we now have this is full of product. Then what we have finally is the packing station. Now this guy's a bit useless because look, he's sitting there right now doing nothing, which really annoys me because he should be doing something. So I'm going to trying to assign this one to this one here as well. He's already assigned it, so I can't do it. So the last packer, and I'm not sure why he keeps doing this. He's done this quite a few times. He should be moving stuff from this shelf here onto the packing station. I'm just going to pop that on there so you can see that he will eventually get over there and pack. So for him, he has a couple of extra orders. So he has a move order to take the products from here onto here. That completes the packing station. So the packing station's got some product onto it. And then you manage the packing station and you again, destination, and we've got that one over there. I also got him to sort of pick up jars from here. So I give him an order to go from the jar stand that we've got right here over to here to constantly fill it up with jars. Now, I'm going to sort of mess around with him a little bit because I'm not sure what he's doing. I might reset his orders and see. Because if you give them too much and sometimes they'll get confused, or sometimes one of their jobs is very hands-on and they're constantly doing it so they don't have time to do anything else. But that's the core process. This bit's very, very simple. Simply assign them buckets. Make sure each of the buckets has been assigned to a distribution section, destination. So basically all they'll do is they'll grow, they'll cut down, and they'll put it all on a shelf. And then make sure that your shelf has a handy person to pick up the weed and then put it on the first station. That's the most important step. And then make sure that your handy person is then assigned to one shelf to put it down, one shelf to put it down, all the way up until their total of 5 movements. If you need more, you'll have to pick up additional handy people. And then again, just finally, real quick, for the chemists, make sure that the chemists are assigned to alternative chemist stations if you can, and then just simply have them drop the destination stuff off at the very next one, and that will keep the chain going. Hopefully this has been easy enough to follow. I've tried to explain it in as simple matter as I can. It seems a bit complicated to begin with, but it's really not that hard. If you've got any questions or comments, do post down below and I'll definitely get back to you. We are going to work on sort of scaling this up, far more profit. I think we're earning about sort of 3 or 4 grand a day off this automated, which is fine. Obviously, the only real issue is having to keep the things stocked up. So you can see here, we've got paracetamol, we've got Coke, and because we're using the same materials a couple of times, there is an awful lot of materials in. In any given day, they will probably get through an entire shelf of stuff. So you're going to have to come in the morning and fill it all up with materials so they don't run out. It will literally be a shelf and I think 2 more stacks depending on how long yours is. As I said, ours is 7 deep, so if yours is shorter, they shouldn't get through so much product. But you will have to come in and fill it up every now and then. But you can see here, look, we're getting, this is just from today, and then he's going to be sitting there packing it up. So this is a mix of 7 weeds. So this is like one of the highest mixes you can get. It's worth, I think, $165, and he's already been packing stuff over here as well. So if you've got any questions, do post below, and I'll help you out. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.